This is a PDR live streaming this Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. Please like this live stream and subscribe to our channel. We want to thank those of you who have just subscribed to the channel. We have received up to about 80 new subscribers in the past month, and we thank those of you who are now following our channel. So earlier today, Luigi Mangione was charged on 11 counts, including a first-degree charge with the furtherance of terrorism, first-degree murder charge. We're going to take you right now to Alvin Bragg's announcement of that charge.
This was a frightening, well-planned, targeted murder that was intended to cause shock and attention and intimidation. It occurred in one of the most bustling parts of our city, threatening the safety of local residents and tourists alike, commuters and business people just starting out on their day. Let me say a bit more about the charges. They include 1 count of murder in the first degree as a killing in furtherance of terrorism, 2 counts of murder in the second degree, 1 charging that the killing was done as an act of terrorism, and the second pertaining to the fact that the killing was intentional. The maximum penalty possible for murder in the first degree and murder in the second degree as an act of terrorism is life without parole. The maximum penalty for murder in the second degree is 25 years to life. There are additional counts as well. A number of criminal possession of weapon charges, 2 counts in the second degree, 4 counts in the third degree, 1 count in the fourth degree, and a count of criminal possession of a forged instrument in the second degree. Let me tell you a bit about the facts. On November 24th, we allege that the defendant arrived.
So that's the charge, folks. And we're now going to take you to the, well, actually, we'll maybe switch this up a little bit. We'll take a look at the rap sheet, for lack of a better term. So this is the charge that the Manhattan office unsealed today, and this is what he's talking about. And it says here, the grand jury of the county of New York by this indictment accuses the defendant of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of penal law 125.27 parenthesis 1a Roman numeral 13, and I guess that's maybe subsection B, committed as follows. The defendant in the county of New York, on or about December 4th, 2024, being more than 18 years old at the time of the commission of the crime, with intent to cause the death of another person, caused the death of Brian Thompson. Said person was killed in furtherance of an act of terrorism, involving a violent act and acts dangerous to human life that were in violation of the criminal laws of the state and were intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policies of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, and affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping. So this is the charge that this DA is going to have a very difficult time proving. And then we're going to get to the penal law right now, the section 125.27, which reads as follow: that you're guilty of murder in the first degree when, with the intent to cause the death of another person, causes the death of such person or of a third person, and you do all of these things. So if we take a look at sorry. And there's the defendant in subsection B. The defendant was more than 18 years old at the time of the commission of the crime, so that they meet that element there. But what part here of this statute mentioned the other law? But this statute takes you to another one, and here it is. Here it is. Roman numeral 11, in subsection Roman numeral 13, I guess. The victim was killed in furtherance of an act of terrorism, as defined in paragraph B of subdivision 1 of section 490.05 of this chapter. So that is where you find a definition of terrorism under New York law. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the DA is going to have his work cut out for him. Because I honestly, I don't think that the elements cited here, I don't think that the DA has the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Luigi Mangione committed an act of terrorism. But this 490.05 says the following. Number one, act of terrorism. For the purposes of this article, means an act, okay, or acts constituting a specified offense as defined in subdivision 3 of this section, for which a person may be convicted in a criminal courts of this state, pursuant to Article 20 of the Criminal Procedure Law, and so forth. The essential elements of a specified offense that is intended to, okay, intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, or 3, affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping, and so forth. Or for purposes of paragraph of 13 of paragraph A of subdivision 1 of section 125.27 of this chapter, means activities that involve a violent act or acts dangerous to human life that are in violation of the criminal laws of this state and are intended to, and it just repeats what I just read before. But the problem that they're going to have is, and I mentioned this earlier today in the previous live stream, is that I had a feeling that I didn't think that they would meet this terrorism standard, but he didn't do any of these things. I'm reading how the state of New York defines terrorism. He didn't intimidate or coerce the civilian population. Okay. He didn't influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion. And he neither sought to do that. And we know he didn't seek to do that because we have his manifesto. And his manifesto states the following. It's right there. If you take a look at the manifesto, there's nothing in there where he says, if you do not change XYZ law, I will continue killing CEOs. Right? That's the whole point of terrorism. Terrorists use kidnappings, torture, or murder to negotiate with authorities. With kidnapping, they use people as ransom to seek some either a change in policy or to get some type of material benefit from said terrorism. There's nothing in here where he's asking anything from the civilian population. He's not threatening the civilian population at all. And as to affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping, well, the only thing we have here about the unit of government is to the feds. I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. So that just seems to be in a very odd way of trying to coerce the federal government by you starting off a manifesto with that tone. So it's just very odd that they're going along with this charge of terrorism. It to me, it just, I don't think that they meet the standards there. So we're now going to take you to a clip from CNN, and they had a panel earlier today, and there was an attorney who told Jake Tapper that she was very doubtful that they would get a guilty verdict. And actually, she states in this clip here that we're going to share with you that she thinks that the defense might seek for the judge to just drop that charge of the first-degree murder charge of terrorism. And we're going to take you to that clip right now.
Happen as soon as Thursday, Jake.
And Stacey, your take on the extradition? Do these new charges, first-degree murder and terrorism, does that change any of this?
It really doesn't. What's going to happen when he appears in Pennsylvania, if he goes forward and waives or consents to extradition, I should say, then New York law enforcement will already likely be in the courtroom in Pennsylvania. He'll be processed out of the Pennsylvania system. He'll still have a hold from the pending charges in Pennsylvania, which will wait out indefinitely while New York addresses its case. And they'll transport him right back to New York and get him into an arraignment in front of the New York Supreme Court criminal, which is for felony indictments. The indictment is already handed up by the grand jury. They'll present him with that indictment and his attorney, and undoubtedly he'll enter a not guilty plea. But there's something I really want to point out here, which is highly unusual, and it's my opinion that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has a bit overreached in this indictment. They were originally going to go forward with a murder 2 charge against Luigi Mangione, which is just having the defendant having the intent to cause death of another human being and the defendant being the cause of that death. They've now gone forward and enlisted this terrorism component to a murder 1 indictment, which means they presented evidence in front of the grand jury, which is a group of 24 people from the community, without a judge in place, just a district attorney and a group of 24 grand jurors who hear evidence. It is undoubted, or I believe that the DA presented that alleged manifesto to try to get this terrorism charge added on as murder 1, but they're going to have a harder time proving that in court for one reason, and I'll make it fast. This victim was shot in the back of the head, not in the front of the head, on a quiet sidewalk early in the morning in the dark, and it doesn't appear from a defense attorney's perspective that this was intended to be a terroristic type of murder.
So one other thing I want to ask is just, I want you to take a listen from moments ago, the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg. Let's roll that tape.
1 count of murder in the first degree is a killing in furtherance of terrorism. 2 counts of murder in the second degree. 1 charging that the killing was done as an act of terrorism, and the second pertaining to the fact that the killing was intentional.
So, Stacey, you think a defense attorney would disagree with that and with what Shimon laid out, that the prosecution will explain is that because he was targeted, Mr. Thompson, for being a CEO of a health insurance company, and this does appear to be politically motivated in a sense, but you disagree with those charges, or you think a defense attorney would take issue?
I think his defense attorney is going to definitely take issue at trial. They may even move to dismiss the top count of murder one, and that would be Karen Agnifilio, because arguing this was a terroristic act when he was on a quiet street in the dark shooting a victim in the back of the head and then intending to influence the whole world about the insurance industry was an unintended consequence of this murder. No one expected the social media outpouring, the disturbing social media outpouring from this act. And to have the district attorney and law enforcement from New York mention that there was a social media outcry in relation to a terroristic act is putting the cart before the horse. I mean, the murder happened first, the outcry was second, and totally unpredictable. So I think this might be a case of overreaching on a murder one. I could see why they have enough evidence, or they believe, law enforcement, that they have enough evidence for murder two. But this is going to be a very interesting turn.
John Miller, I want to play for you. Listen to the.
So, right, she makes a good point, and I didn't even think of this, but the murder happened around 6:40 something, I believe. So, if this was terrorism, I think what she's trying to say is, if this was terrorism, he would have done it when there's a lot of traffic in the streets. You know, when there are a lot of people out and about in the city. He would have done it around 7:30, or he would have done it he would have committed the assassination. He would have probably followed him at all the way to the investor conference to get the maximum amount of publicity. But he didn't do that. He just cornered him and shot him from behind. And the other witness who was there fled. He did not harm anybody else and put anybody else in harm's way because there was no one else there in the vicinity. And we saw again the manifesto. There's just nothing here, in my opinion, that would lead me to believe that he tried to commit a terroristic act. There's just nothing in that manifesto that supports that theory. So what is really motivating the DA to do this? What could be the motivation? Or possible motivations for the DA to use terrorism charges. So this is Brianna Boston, a woman who is being accused of committing terrorist acts because she used the words delay, deny, depose during a phone call when an insurance company representative informed her that they would be denying her claim. And so she's now being charged with terrorism. So the part of the motivation could be to silence critics of the insurance industry, because if you just tag someone as a terrorist just because they're critical of the insurance industry, then maybe you can tamp down on all of this criticism. And if you can tie critics of the insurance companies, or even customers who are angry at the insurance companies, if you can tie them to Luigi Mangione, who is now charged as a terrorist, and if found guilty, he will be a convicted terrorist under U.S. law, then you can tar and feather any healthcare activist or anybody who's critical of the insurance industry. This terrorism charge would have a chilling effect on the activist community within the healthcare industry. And just to buttress that point, shout out to Status Quo, Jordan Sheridan, who discussed this very theme earlier today. And we're going to go ahead and listen to what he had to say about these charges.
Oh no.
We have almost 1,000 people watching, but only 300 people have pressed the like button. In addition to her scolding you, the American people, for your shameful glee at the murder of a for-profit predatory healthcare CEO, the Manhattan District Attorney also spoke, and he was asked twice, can you kind of justify or explain the terrorism charges? Let's listen to his response.
This is the second most.
Please elaborate on the terrorism theory that backs up the 101st count. What elements do you expect to be able to do?
Sure. So, in its most basic terms, this was a killing that it was intended to evoke terror. And we've seen that reaction. The statutory elements we can go into, but its most basic term, that's what this is. This was not an ordinary killing, not to suggest that any killing is ordinary, but this was extraordinary, and the New York State Legislature has set out both the paths that we talk about, both the murder one and murder two, and this we allege is certainly squarely within those statutes, which talk about intending to do exactly what we saw happen.
What? He didn't say anything. He talked about the reaction to it. You can't charge an individual for the public reaction to what he did. That's not within Luigi's control, how the public reacted.
So, a couple things, and he's going to say this later.
But again, I think that's the aim. And if we recall from the previous live stream, their at the beginning of the press conference, Jennifer Tish, the head of the New York police, mentioned that the outpouring of support for Luigi Mangione and how she was sickened. And at first, I just reacted very negatively to it. But if you take a moment and a step back, I think that's really partly what's motivating this, because they don't want any future quote unquote Robin Hoods like Luigi Mangione or any vigilantes like they call them they don't want him to encourage other copycats, number one. So I think that's what's motivating it, that they're trying to tamp down this support that he has. The other thing too is they're probably getting pushback from I'm speculating here on this part. They're probably getting pushback from the CEOs around the country and probably from the insurance companies, because if you guys remember, Alvin Bragg was the one who charged Donald Trump with in the Stormy Daniels case, and he probably was most likely being pressured by the White House to do so. So this is a very political office, and probably what's happening here behind the scenes is that the insurance executives around the country are pressuring him, especially United Healthcare, to charge this, to do something. And so they probably figured out, well, we can use the terrorism charge, right? Just like the other woman where she lives in, her jurisdiction, the DA there used a terrorism charge to go after her. So I think that's the whole aim, that they just want part of it. It's just like the lady here mentioned, is that that it's not his fault that all these people reacted online like that. It's not Luigi Mangione's fault that he went viral and he had no control over that. But that's exactly the point, that they they don't want that to happen. They don't, and they mentioned mob rule. Our system of government, since Federalist Number 10, written by James Madison, looks down on mob rule, i.e., democracy. Right? They don't want that. They don't want people to take the law into their own hands. They don't want people to come together and organize and to take the reins of government. Right? They don't want citizen participation, direct democracy. Right? They would rather have a representative democracy where they get to call the shots, not you. So that's the threat that's posed by this. So that's just my opinion there.
Later, you know what? Before I respond, let's play the other clip. So there's another clip where he's asked again about the terrorism charges, and he elaborates more. Let's play that, Colin.
Sure, and my point, I mean, the statute talks about attempts to influence or coerce.
We read the statute
a civilian population. The statute talks about intending to influence a policy of government, and it talks about seeking to put forth things similar to that by murder. So the statute, the plain language of the statute is clear. Obviously, we've charged it. The grand jury has voted on it, and we intend to go forward and prove it. But I think it does help to take a step back, and think about the proof in the case, some of the writings. I'm not going to get into too much of that, but and the actual reaction. In the middle of Midtown, the beginning of a busy day, tourists, commuters, business people, the intent was to sow.
So just like the lawyer in the CNN clip mentioned that when he shot Brian Thompson, it was not a busy day at a time of the day at all. So there's nothing there. I think so. I think the murder was around 6:40, between 6:40 to 6:50 in the morning. So that people are not on about on the street. Most people are probably having their breakfast, or some people are probably waking up. So, and where he cornered him, he cornered the CEO, Brian Thompson, and there was only just one bystander was there. So what he just said is just not. It's the facts. It's not borne out by the facts, basically. And not even close at all.
So, a few things. Number one, he mentioned the manifesto, right? First of all, the manifesto, in terms of manifestos of, supposed terrorists, this one was probably the most sane, calm ones I've read. It was very short. He stated some healthcare statistics. He also apologized to the police. In the manifesto, he actually complimented law enforcement, stating, for the most part, you do a commendable job. I'm paraphrasing. Secondly, I don't know many domestic terrorists or terrorists, period, that in the notes they found in his notebook, he said, first I was thinking about bombing the conference. This was the investor conference that Brian Thompson was set to speak at for United Healthcare. But I chose instead to do a targeted shooting because I didn't want to kill innocents. The point of terrorism, I don't care if it's foreign, domestic, is to kill as many people as you can. That's, in part, what creates terror. He, in his writing, again, even if you don't agree with him shooting Brian Thompson, and plenty of people don't. They agree. Plenty of people, you can have two thoughts at once. You don't agree with going around gunning down people, but you understand the outrage. I personally don't agree with going around gunning down CEOs because I think it will come back on us tenfold. Not twofold, tenfold. If we start going around vigilante justice, trust me, you think what they did after 9/11 with the Patriot Act and taking away your civil liberties, that'll be nothing compared to what they will do if we start having mass vigilante justice. You can say, well, Jordan, look, this started a conversation and awoke a sleeping giant. It certainly did. But I am telling you, and we're already starting to see the ramifications of them charging him as a terrorist, it will be reversed on us. And they'll start charging people who open up a lemonade stand if they look at the cops the wrong way as terrorists.
They're already doing that. They're already doing that. I mean, we have, as we mentioned, the woman in Florida, Breonna Boston. She was arrested for domestic threatening, for terroristic threatening, for simply saying deny, defend, oppose on a call with an insurance representative.
Right.
And
Right.
she didn't threaten them. She was frustrated because her claim was denied, and she simply said deny, defend, oppose. And it was reported, and the cops showed up at her house, and they wheeled her in and arrested her. This can completely ruin this woman's life. They used her as an example, and they're using Luigi as an example, and it's to set a chilling effect on all
There
of
it
us.
is.
And I think she really poses the example here. I mean, but we've also seen similar charges be pressed and be implemented to against pro-Palestine protesters, as we had talked about yesterday, and we may speak about again a little bit, against Cop City protesters, against Stop Cop City protesters, against we saw them during the George Floyd protest. This is not new, and it is scary because I feel like it's escalating. Do you feel that way, Jordan?
Well, yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah, so those are very good points there that were being made. But I also wanted to add that it wasn't just 9/11, but the Oklahoma City bombing as well. You had the individual Timothy McVeigh, and right after that, the Bill Clinton administration immediately started curtailing civil liberties. They passed kind of like, I forget what the name of the law was, but it was kind of like a Patriot Act. So the federal government always has something in place ready to try to curtail people's civil liberties. You look back in history, World War One, right? The Alien and Sedition Acts, targeting people who spoke out against World War One. And even the courts get involved, the Supreme Court, in the Supreme Court case where the justice, forget who the justice was, but he says the doctrine of you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. It was used to help indict people critical of World War One. They were socialists or communists, I believe. All they were doing was just leafleting at the time. Eugene Debs was thrown in jail for making a speech, and he didn't even mention World War One. He just was critical of the war, right? He didn't tell people, "Oh, don't enlist," but he was still charged and was thrown in jail. And he's the only, I believe, he's the only presidential candidate to run his campaign in jail. So Trump has nothing on Eugene Debs. But yeah, the U.S. has a history. The Oklahoma City bombing and 9/11, the Patriot Act, the Snowden case, as well, the eavesdropping, the wiretapping, that's not just in this country, but in other countries as well. And I'm going to go ahead and one more thing here. Let's see here. I'm going to play this video here very briefly. It's a very brief, like 20-second video, and I think that this will help like add to what's being
Let's go
said.
now to the latest in the fallout from the murder investigation of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The office of New York Governor Kathy Hochul is convening a safety summit tomorrow between nervous business leaders and law enforcement. CNN has learned the safety concerns among executives are so widespread, New York State may create a special hotline just for CEOs to call in
'Cause they're
threats.
scared. Right. So a hotline, right? So they can call in. So they just feel, apparently these people, they just feel threatened. So that's it for today. And again, the news of the terrorism charge, it does have a chilling effect. It's not just about Luigi Mangione, but you see that they've already targeted a woman, Brianna Boston, and they can target anybody else who's critical of the health insurance industry. And all they need to do to kind of further that point is to charge this guy with terrorism and then convince the jury to find him guilty. Hopefully, like what the attorney said, that she thinks that the defense counsel in this case will likely request that the judge dismiss that charge. Hopefully that happens before it even gets to a jury, because we just read the law, and the state at the moment, from what we know, they do not meet the elements of the law. They don't have that, at least what's in public knowledge right now. There's no indication that he attempted to commit a terrorist act. That's not what this is about, and he's made it very clear why he did what he did. He wrote it out, and unless he told something to someone else or told the cops something, then that's another issue. Or his parents stated something, but I think even if the parents stated something to the authorities, he'll contest that and probably deny it, and so forth. So that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining. Please like this live stream, subscribe to our channel, and once again, thank you for all the support that the new subscribers have given to our channel, and of course the older subscribers as well. We're at 343 at the moment, or at the moment, or 342, close to 500. So we might get this channel monetized. Thank you so much.